Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renu Kataria and with me is R.S. Raghu bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in second Global COVID Virtual Summit, emphasizes need for coordinated global response for future health emergencies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Lumbini in Nepal on occasion of Buddha Purnima on May 16. United National Party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe takes oath as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Finland favors applying for NATO membership. Russia says Finland's move would not help stability and security in Europe. Democratic People's Republic of Korea reports its first COVID-19 case. And International Nurses Day being celebrated to mark the contribution made by nurses. Prime Minister Narendra Modi stressed that coordinated global response is required to combat future health emergencies. He said all the stakeholders must build a resilient global supply chain and enable equitable access to vaccines and medicines. The Prime Minister participated in the second Global COVID Virtual Summit on Thursday at the invitation of the US President Joseph Biden. Mr. Modi delivered his address in the opening session of the summit on the theme Preventing Pandemic Fatigue and Prioritizing Preparedness.
We must build a resilient global supply chain and enable equitable access to vaccines and medicines. WTO rules, particularly TRIPS, need to be more flexible. WHO must be reformed and strengthened to build a more resilient global health security architecture. We also call for streamlining WHO's approval process for vaccines and therapeutics to keep supply chains stable and predictable. As a responsible member of the global community, India is ready to play a key role in these efforts.
The Prime Minister said India has adopted people-centric approach towards COVID pandemic and made highest allocation towards annual healthcare budget. He said India operationalized largest vaccination program in the world wherein 90% of adult populace is fully vaccinated.
Our vaccination program is the largest in the world. We have fully vaccinated almost 90% of the adult population and more than 50 million children. India manufactures 4 WHO-approved vaccines and has the capacity to produce 5 billion doses this year.
Highlighting India's capability to tackle the pandemic, Prime Minister said country has developed low-cost mitigation technologies for testing and treatment. He said India manufactures 4 World Health Organization's approved vaccines and has supplied over 200 million doses to over 98 countries.
India's Genomics Consortium has contributed significantly to the global database on the virus. I am happy to share that we will extend this network to countries in our neighborhood.
Pointing towards the importance of traditional medicine in the fight against COVID pandemic, Mr. Modi said Indians extensively use the traditional medicines to boost immunity, which resulted in saving countless lives.
Last month, we laid the foundation of WHO Center for Traditional Medicine in India with an aim to make this age-old knowledge available to the world. It is clear that a coordinated global response is required to combat future health emergencies.
Secretary General of the United Nations, Director General of World Health Organization and other dignitaries also participated in the summit.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on second Global COVID Virtual Summit. In conversation are Anil Vadva, former ambassador, and Simran Sodhi, journalist.
Today we are discussing the second Global COVID Summit in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi also participated virtually, and the PM said that India is ready to play a key role in global efforts Ambassador Vadva, when you see the Prime Minister's address today at the summit and the holding of this summit, how do you assess the world's reaction to a world which is emerging from the pandemic?
So I think this pandemic has thrown up many challenges, and many countries, especially in the developing world, have actually suffered a lot because of the disruption it has caused in their daily lives and the burden that it has put on their societies. What we need really is a galvanization of new actions to address the continued challenges of COVID pandemic and also to build a stronger global health security architecture. And that's why today the first session was devoted to the topic of preventing pandemic fatigue and prioritizing preparedness. And some chosen leaders were also invited to attend, and India Prime Minister Modi were one of them. And now in his address, he raised some very pertinent points because he made the point firstly that the pandemic has affected not only our daily lives but also our supply chains, and also the resilience of open societies is being tested. He made the point that India has made the highest allocation to the healthcare budget this year, and the vaccination budget is the highest in the world. He also said that India now produces 5 billion doses. This year it will produce 5 billion doses. 200 million doses have been given to 98 countries. So both through the bilateral route and the COVAX route, India has been helping other countries in the process. India also has developed low-cost testing techniques, treatment techniques, and the management of COVID data management. And this it is prepared to offer to the others. And also, he said that, in our neighborhood, India would do its best to extend this help. One important point that he made was that India also uses traditional medicines to supplement the fight against COVID. And he also said that it was important to have an equitable access to the medicines. So in that context, two important issues were raised. One was that the WTO rules, should allow for local production of vaccines because it is bound by rules which do not allow this at the moment, and India and some developing countries have raised this issue in the WTO. He also raised the point that the WHO needs to be reformed, and there has to be a resilient security architecture for health around the world. Then again, for vaccines to keep the supply chains flowing, it's important that WHO can change itself, can transform itself. So all in all, a very comprehensive speech in a short period of time.
Mr. Vadva, as you also pointed out, the PM made some very important points, and two of the things that you mentioned that the PM spoke, one was that India would want to extend this help to in the neighborhood, and we also saw that during the COVID crisis, India did extend what we have called as the vaccine Maitri. India helped out all its neighbors in the supply of the vaccine, and as the Prime Minister pointed out, India has supplied 200 million doses to 98 nations. Do you feel that the negative aspects of the COVID pandemic at one side, we also see that this was a movement where India actually rose to a point where it showed that it is actually a global player today? Also in the sense because India was willing to share whatever it had with its neighbors and with the world generally. And that helps India in its global stature, and it also helps the PM the way he has reached out to the other countries of the world.
It definitely goes to show that India's importance in the world as far as the fight against pandemic has grown because of its capacity to manufacture vaccines on a large scale. In fact, it's played a very key role in the ongoing efforts, global efforts to combat the pandemic by supplying safe and affordable vaccines and medicines, and also, as I said, development of low-cost indigenous technologies to test and treat, and the genomic surveillance as well, and capacity building for the healthcare workers. In fact, it's engaged very continuously with the multilateral fora with the objective of strengthening and reforming the global health security architecture with WTO as its center. So these efforts have, of course, been focused on friendly countries, but importantly, as you mentioned, on the neighborhood first, because there the neighborhood depends a lot on what India has to offer. And, the capacity of India to produce these vaccines will come in handy. Its experience in handling the pandemic for such a large population will also be very important for the countries with whom India has been in touch with. Many countries and governments, going forward, would have to invest very heavily in building the infrastructure and also, investing in training scientists who can develop efficient and affordable vaccines more quickly. And countries like India can help a lot in this respect.
Mr. Vadra, we also see that when the pandemic was going on and there was a lot of research which was ongoing on the various medicines, on the various vaccines that could come out, we also saw a lot of argument over the intellectual property rights. We also saw this huge division between the developed countries of the world and the underdeveloped or the poorer countries of the world. Do you feel, especially as the PM has also pointed out, one, that India is now ready to play a key role in global efforts? He's also called on WHO. Do you feel that this is now the time when the countries of the world can come together and maybe figure out a way where the vaccines are available more quickly and what we have the intellectual property rights? That issue can maybe be resolved in a more humanitarian fashion.
So I think India has been at the forefront of moving this resolution in the WTO for the waiver of intellectual property, not only with respect to vaccines, but also, the related equipments and medicaments, etc. Now, what has happened there is that the WTO seems to be in an impasse by itself because of the very nature of its working. And, there is a big lobby of interested vaccine manufacturers around the world who would not like to part with this easily, and therefore they put pressure on their governments not to do so. But today, in most of Africa, only less than 20% of this population has received one dose of the vaccine. In the remaining few, less than 35% have received one dose, as per latest data which is coming on May 11th. And it's just that COVID vaccines have been developed remarkably quickly, and it has also been a matter of luck because the coronavirus has already caused a lot of other difficult diseases. So it's a familiar kind of pathogen. So the countries around the world like India have been able to develop this vaccine very quickly. However, for the countries in Africa and in other less developed parts of the world, countries will have to work together to waive the intellectual property rights. Otherwise, this access to vaccines would not come very easily. So unfortunately, this is something which many countries have raised, but so far the developed world, under pressure from the important lobbies in the developed world, have not been able to achieve a breakthrough.
Thank you.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will pay an official visit to Lumbini on May 16th, on the occasion of Buddha Purnima, at the invitation of his Nepalese counterpart Sher Bahadur Dwaiba. A report.
This will be Mr. Modi's fifth visit to Nepal since 2014. At Lumbini, he will visit the sacred Mayadevi temple for prayers. The Prime Minister will also deliver an address at a Buddha Jayanti event organized by the Lumbini Development Trust under the aegis of the Government of Nepal. Mr. Modi will participate in the Shilanyas ceremony for the construction of a center for Buddhist culture and heritage in a plot belonging to the International Buddhist Confederation, New Delhi, within the Lumbini monastic zone. Both the Prime Ministers will hold a bilateral meeting. Prime Minister Modi's visit continues the tradition of regular high-level exchanges between India and Nepal in furtherance of India's neighborhood first policy. It underscores the shared civilizational heritage of the people of both the countries. VC Pramod for World News, All India Radio.
United Arab Emirates Minister of Economy Abdullah bin Toq Al Mari made a courtesy call on Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in New Delhi on Thursday. Both of them discussed the strong economic and commercial engagement between the India-UAE and the comprehensive strategic partnership which is driving the multifaceted bilateral relations. Mr. Mari and a high-level UAE delegation are in New Delhi for India-UAE Economic Partnership Summit, India-UAE CEPA, Unleashing the Golden Era. The Ministry of Finance in a statement said, such regular exchanges and bilateral meetings further deepen India's engagement and harness newer areas while maximally exploiting the existing institutional arrangements.
India's Union for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Narayan Rane, has invited the United Arab Emirates to invest in India in sectors such as infrastructure, food processing. Mr. Rane highlighted that UAE is India's third largest trading partner. He said both the countries look forward to working together to set up a system that enables the MSMEs to explore new opportunities and also scale the already existing businesses.
Gradual and steady recovery in private consumption and robust exports have induced a healthy investment environment in the economy. The economy is witnessing healthy investment despite the headwinds emerging from global geopolitical developments and inflationary pressures. This was stated in the monthly economic review report for April 2022 by the Ministry of Finance. It said strong recovery in economic activity further assisted growth employment opportunities. The ministry said IMF World Economic Outlook has projected India to be the fastest growing economy at 8.2% in the financial year 2022 and 6.9% in the financial year 2023.
Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that India was considering entering a preferential trade agreement PTA with Oman. He was speaking at the 10th meeting of the India-Oman Joint Business Council in New Delhi. The minister stressed on the need for a significant increase in business-to-business engagement between India and Oman. He expressed confidence that the potential for trade will be finally tapped between India and Oman in the near future. Mr. Goyal urged India-Oman Joint Business Council to supplement the efforts of governments of both countries to further deepen bilateral engagement. He stated that it is the businesses that have to demonstrate how much they are willing to go ahead and work together, whether in food industry or startup ecosystem. He said young entrepreneurs of Oman will be excited if the opportunities in India's startup world open for them.
India's extended range version of BrahMos air-launched missile successfully fired from Su-30 MKI fighter aircraft on Thursday. The missile is a direct hit on the designated target in the Bay region. The Defence Ministry said it was the first launch of extended range version of BrahMos missile from Su-30 MKI aircraft. With this, the Indian Air Force has achieved the capability to carry out precision strikes from Su-30 MKI aircraft. The extended range capability of the missile coupled with the high performance of the Su-30 MKI aircraft gives the IAF a strategic reach and allows it to dominate the future battlefields. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back to World News. Five-time former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe took oath once again as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka on Thursday. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa administered oath to the United National Party leader at a ceremony held in the President's office in Colombo. The President's brother, Mahinda Rajapaksa, resigned as the Prime Minister on Monday following violent attacks by supporters on peaceful anti-government protesters. His resignation automatically dissolved the cabinet, leaving an administrative vacuum. Mr. Wickremesinghe has been reappointed in an effort to bring stability to the island nation engulfed in a political and economic crisis.
Finland's leaders said that they are in favor of rapidly applying for the NATO membership. It will pave the way for a historic expansion of the alliance. The move by Finland was announced by President Sauli Niinistö and Prime Minister Sanna Marin on Thursday. It means that Finland is all but certain to join NATO, though a few steps remain before the application process can begin. Neighbouring Sweden is expected to decide on joining NATO in coming days. Mr. Niinistö and Ms. Marin in a joint statement said that NATO membership would strengthen Finland's security. They said as a member of NATO, Finland would strengthen the entire defence alliance. Finland shares a 1,340-kilometre land border with Russia. Meanwhile, Russia said that Finland's move to join NATO would not help stability and security in Europe. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Russia's response to the move would depend on what specific steps NATO will take to bring its infrastructure close to Russian borders.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has confirmed its first COVID-19 outbreak in over 2 years. It has declared a national lockdown, state media KCNA reported on Thursday. It said that people in Pyongyang had contracted the Omicron BA.2 subvariant of SARS-CoV-2 without providing case numbers or sources of infection. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to overcome the unexpected crisis. He called on all cities and countries to thoroughly lock down their regions to curb the spread of the virus. the news agency reported. North Korea has had strict measures such as border lockdowns in place since COVID-19 outbreak in early 2020. The outbreak forced leader Kim Jong-un to wear a mask in public. Chinese Foreign Ministry said it stands ready to provide full support and assistance to the Korea in the fight against COVID-19 epidemic.
And now a report from the business world.
The Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange tanked 1,158 points or 2.1% to trade at 52,950 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange slumped 359 points or 2.2% to 15,808. At global stock markets, key indices at other Asian markets also ended lower. So Japan's Nikkei index declined 1.8%, China's Shanghai Composite Index shed 0.1%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index plunged 2.2%. In Europe, the FTSE had slipped 2.5%, France's CAC had declined 2.6%, and Germany's DAX had fallen 2.4% in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices dropped more than 2%. At the forex market, the rupee weakened 18 paise against the US dollar to close the day at 77 rupees and 42 paise. Rajesh Lake for World News, All India Radio.
The International Nurses Day is being celebrated on May 12th to mark the contribution made by nurses to the society. The day coincides with the birthday of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. The Military Nursing Service, or MNS, of the Indian Armed Forces is celebrating the day with great zeal and excitement. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appreciated the role of nurses for their vital role in keeping passion is exemplary. In a tweet, Mr. Modi said, "This is a day to reiterate our appreciation to all nursing staff for their exceptional work, even in the most challenging of situations."
International Day of Plant Health is being observed on Thursday. It is celebrated on 12th of May every year to raise global awareness on protecting plant health. The United Nations designated 12th May the International Day of Plant Health. It is observed to raise global awareness on how protecting plant health can help end hunger, reduce poverty, protect biodiversity and the environment, and boost economic development. And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Now let's have a look at the press reports on Nepal. The Kathmandu Post writes that Nepal's Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba would discuss the 1,200 megawatt West Seti power project with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his visit to Lumbini on May 16.
The Rising Nepal reports that newly appointed ambassador of Nepal to India, Dr. Shankar Prasad Sharma, presented his credentials to the President Ramnath Kovind in New Delhi on Wednesday.
Now let's have a look at the press reports on Pakistan. The Express Tribune says that Pakistan government has clarified that there is no change in Pakistan's policy on trade with India after the Federal Cabinet approved the appointment of Trade and Investment Minister in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi. The development has triggered speculations that the new government had decided to restore bilateral trade with India that has remained suspended since August 2019, when New Delhi revoked the special status of the disputed Jammu and Kashmir region.
Dawn writes Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on Wednesday met his elder brother and PMLN Supremo Nawaz Sharif in London. He is visiting along with 10-member delegation. The trip has been criticized by PTI Chairman Imran Khan.
Dawn also reports that Pakistan People's Party co-chair Asif Ali Zardari said on Wednesday that elections in the country would be held after the incumbent coalition government implements electoral reforms and amends the National Accountability Bureau laws.
Now let's have a look at the press reports on Bangladesh. Bangladesh will not be receiving funding from the U.S. Development Finance Corporation due to shortcomings in ensuring workers' rights, said the Deputy Administrator of U.S. Aid in Dhaka, reports Pratham Olo.
Now let's have a look at the press reports in China. Prasar Bharati Beijing reports Ambassador Pradeep K. Rawat had a virtual interaction with the Indian community in China. Representatives highlighted specific cases related to medical exigency, travel of children, renewal of visa and extension of work permits.
CNBC reports China may have to issue more debt as it is to meet its growth target of 5.5% this year in the face of COVID lockdowns that are stunting its economy. Indian Information and Broadcasting Ministry has released the lineup of films that will be screened at Cannes Film Festival.
था मिलता 4 का समोसा था, 7 की थी पेप्सी, 10 का बिना मसाला डोसा था। हर महीने आखिरी शनि को मिलते 10 रुपए और उसमें मैंने यारों को.
The lineup includes the world premiere of R. Madhavan starrer Rocketry. Rocketry, The Nambi Effect will be premiered at Palais K. The other movies will be screened at the Olympia Theatre. The movies to be screened at the 75th edition of the film festival include Marathi film Godavari, Hindi film Alpha Beta Gamma, Mission language film Boomba Ride, Hindi and Marathi film Dhumi, and Malayalam film Tree Full of Parrots.
In boxing, India's Anamika punched out Romania's Eugenia Angel 5-0 today in the round of 32 at the 12th edition of the IBA Women's World Boxing Championships in Istanbul. The two other Indian contestants, Jasmine and Shiksha, will also play their matches later tonight. 2021 Asian Championships bronze medalist Jasmine will face a challenge from the two-time youth Asian champion Pronte Bopa of Thailand in the 60-kilogram category, while Shiksha, who was handed a bye in the opening round, will play Argentina's Herrera Milagros Rosario in the 54 kg match. A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in second Global COVID Virtual Summit, emphasizes need for coordinated global response for future health emergencies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Lumbini in Nepal on occasion of Buddha Purnima on May 16. United National Party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe takes oath as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Finland favors applying for NATO membership. Russia says Finland's move would not help stability and security in Europe. Democratic People's Republic of Korea reports its first COVID-19 case, and International Nurses Day being celebrated to mark the contribution's favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from UAE.
Vaishnav Jan to tene kahiye je pije parai jane re par dukhe upkar kare koye man apna na aade re sakal lok man sabne vande ninda na kare keri re vachkast man nisal rakhe dan dan janani teri re on lobine kapat rahite che kam krodh vibarya Sayo tenu darshan karta aur eko tere dariya Vaishnav jane to tene kahiye je pije parai jane re par dukhe upkar kare soye man apna na aade re sakal lok man sabne vande ninda na kare keri re vachkast man nisal rakhe dan dan janani teri re on lobine kapat rahite che kam krodh vibarya re kahan sayo tenu darshan karta aur eko.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.